In this lesson, we'll begin to prepare our base image and then do some planning for the photo manipulation we'll be embarking on in this course. All right, so this is the Lesson 2 Begin file. If you want to check your project files, you'll find this in the Photoshop Files folder. So now anytime that I begin a project like this, where we're doing kind of an advanced photo manipulation based on an image, I like to start off by establishing sort of a game plan. So, most of the time when I do this, I'll do it right inside of Photoshop. Let's come over here and just select our topmost layer and create a new layer on top of that and just call it Notes. Now, assuming you're going to be doing the exact same manipulations I am, then you may not need to do this at home, but if you're wanting to do something completely different, then it's a good idea to game plan that out and just make some notes to yourself. So now let's go ahead and grab our brush tool. It's the keyboard shortcut B, and let's just simply right click on our canvas anywhere. Now we're going to talk a little bit about brushes before we make our notes, because we're going to be using some special brushes, and I want to show you how to load those up before we go any further. So these are actually the brushes right here, but this is Photoshop's brush preset picker. Now if you come up here to this little gear in the top right corner, you can come down here to replace brushes. But before I click on that, you want to make sure that any custom brushes you have created are saved outside of Photoshop, because this will overwrite them. We're going to go to Replace Brushes, and when this dialog opens, browse to the Referenced Files folder in your project files. There you'll find this AbandonedCity.abr. Those are the brushes we're going to be using in this course, and you can see that I've stretched my preset picker out large enough to accommodate 2 columns, because there's quite a few brushes here. So now you can switch this around to this large list view right over here, again under this gear if you want, or you can go to a stroke thumbnail preview. So I'm actually going to go back to that large list. I like to be able to see the names of the brushes, because you'll notice that these brushes are named appropriately according to what they can be used to create. So with that said, let's just click outside of that, and actually let's go ahead and jump back in there and select our hard round brush, and I'll just set that to something like 10 pixels for right now. And let's go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of the direction we're going to take this image. Now, remember that we're creating an image that says that this is an abandoned city. This is one that maybe people have long left, and nature has begun to sort of overrun this city. So looking at this image, there's a couple of things that stick out to me initially that really are going to be barriers to the composition and need to be fixed. The first of which being sort of this building right here. This building is right in the middle of the composition, and if you read from left to right, your eye is going to enter the composition right up here, and it's going to go straight into that building where it's going to sort of hit a visual wall. So we definitely want to remove this building, or at least move it. Now, another thing that I'm noticing here is this other building over here. Let me zoom in by hitting Control and Spacebar. Is basically leaning, and I can assure you, because I live in this city, that building doesn't lean. This is actually some lens distortion where the image is close to the edge of the lens, so we've got this little bit of a curvature going right there. So we're going to have to let's just go ahead and just lasso this, or rather draw a circle around that one and just say straighten. But in all reality, we're going to need to do more than that, because the side of the building is leaning a little bit as well. We'll fix that here in just a little bit. Let's just go ahead and draw a little arrow up and down here. Now, over here on this side, we again have kind of our building leaning. Again, rather lens distortion that is affecting the image. Now, in terms of the skyline itself, we're going to be moving these 2 buildings around, so we might as well just replace the entire sky. And the reason I say that is because what I'd like to do is add some framing elements here. Maybe some other buildings sort of in here like so. Maybe we've got some buildings over here, maybe some tall ones. Just to sort of frame our image here, give it more of an interesting backdrop. Now, being that nature is reclaiming this city, we're going to have a lot of greenery, a lot of foliage. Then what we might want to do here is, I'd like to maybe sort of a subtle mountain that's visible in the distance, sort of like that. Now, we've got our arena here that occupies the majority of our image, but we have a great big area right down here in front of the image that we can use to convey the fact that this is an abandoned city. So things that we can do to the arena, we could create, again, a lot of foliage that is just sort of overgrowing it here. So, we'll just scribble a few places here, but I think this is going to be a big selling factor to this image because, again, this is the main subject of our image. Now, we can also come in here, maybe knock some areas out, maybe of this top rim, sort of like this. We can also come in here and start punching out windows and things like that. So maybe we've got this entire window, maybe a car's driven through it or something like that. So now, again, advancing forward, moving towards the camera, we've got a lot of space here. So this is area where we can start to bring in our foliage. So if we were to come in here, maybe just kind of sketch in some clumps. Maybe we could have some bushes and some grass and even some trees here that sort of hit this area right about here. And then maybe bring in some additional foliage from the right-hand side that's maybe a little bit closer to our camera. Sort of like this. Now, one thing to me that says an abandoned city is when you have things like water that is in a place that really a body of water shouldn't be. So maybe we could even do kind of a large body of standing water here, something sort of like this. Kind of in this area or this general vicinity right here. So we've got a lot of different things going on here. We've got a lot of things planned out. Now, we're going to start advancing through these things in this course, but before we do, let's hide our notes and let's just jump over here, and we need to handle sort of the canvas size. So as of right now, this image is basically the dimensions that it was when it came off the camera. Now, if we wanted to do something a little more epic feeling, maybe something in a high definition aspect ratio, we can definitely do that. But before we do, I want to get these buildings on their own layer. So let's grab our lasso tool there. That's the keyboard shortcut L. And I'm just simply going to lasso this building up right here. We can subtract from the selections by holding down Alt, or we can add to them by holding down Shift. You can see my cursor changes. Let me just subtract that. And with my base image layer selected, let's go ahead and hit Control J, and that's going to copy that building to its own layer. Now, it still lives on the base image layer, so we're still going to have to get rid of it there, but at least we've isolated that building onto its own layer. And we'll do the same thing for this building right over here. All right, great. So we'll go ahead and hit Control J, and we've got those two buildings on their own layers. Let me go ahead and grab my Move tool by hitting V on my keyboard, and we'll just kind of group these two buildings together here, just so we can keep track of them. And let's hold Shift to select both layers, and just simply hit Control G on our keyboard. And we'll just call this Buildings. Okay, great. We'll go ahead and hide those for now and bring back our base image. Now let's handle this aspect ratio issue. That's actually pretty easy to do here in Photoshop using the crop tool. Now, the crop tool is right over here, and that keyboard shortcut is C. But the first thing you want to know about the crop tool is you want to make sure that this delete cropped pixels option is turned off. So by doing that, basically it ensures that we can reposition our image so that the areas outside of the canvas are not deleted. We could gain those back just by moving the image around. So with that said, we're going to come up here now and let's just drop this down, and you can see it says unconstrained. It means that we can come in and grab any of these controls here, and we can basically create a custom crop size, whatever dimensions that we want. Let me just hit escape on that, because that's not going to be what's good for us for this particular course. So let's come down here to size and resolution, and you'll get this crop image size and resolution box. And I'm going to just come in here and put in a high definition format. Now, before we do this, if I come up here to image and look at the canvas size, you'll see that my canvas is about 4085 pixels by 2713. So that's about 4K wide. It's only about 11 pixels shy. So let's come back over here and put in a width of 4096. And I'm going to go ahead and use a value for my height of 2160. And as far as resolution, we'll just say 72 pixels per inch. And I'm going to make sure that Save as a Crop preset is marked, so I can do this over and over again for projects in the future. So if I hit OK at this point, Photoshop's going to prompt us to name the preset. We'll just leave it set to the default here. And you'll see that my crop box sizes to that 4096 by 2160 dimensions. So notice also that if we drop this down, we now have this preset right here. So now with that done, we could come in here and we can drag these corner controls around, or these side controls. We can position this exactly where we want to. And basically, once we hit this little checkbox up here, Photoshop's going to go ahead and crop our image for us. Now, again, if we come over here and look at our canvas size, you'll see that we're now at 4096 by 2160, which is exactly what we wanted. And now we've got this more of a 16 by 9 or high definition aspect ratio going here. And on top of that, if we come over here and grab our Move tool, we can now select our base image and we can now drag it around. And you can see that we still have the image outside of the canvas, so we're not deleting any of those pixels. So, all right, great. With that done, now we're ready to move on to the next step. So what I'd like to cover in the next lesson is beginning our sky replacement and skyline enhancement. So we'll get started with that in the next lesson.